Hey guys, welcome back to conexpo 2023. I'm your host, Rick Velko with Diesel and Iron, and to the right,
I'm Brian Furness with Diesel and Iron, and Rick, you're sounding a little tired.
I'm exhausted. My feet are sore. I need a masseuse, maybe electric scooter. But we just want to thank Chevron for bringing us along for the ride. We're actually here hosting in their booth today. And over to the left, we have with Chevron,
Nathan Knotts.
Nathan, thank you for being here.
Nathan, what in the world do you even do?
Yeah, that's the question that I get all the time, and I ask myself that, and I do wonder. But my actual job responsibility gets confused because I'm actually called a portfolio architect.
Ooh, that sounds very
yeah,
fancy.
Exactly, yeah. but no, I don't work in the banking industry. No, I'm not a portfolio manager. I am, in a sense, I guess you could say that, but I actually help to manage our global product line for industrial greases and natural gas engine oils. And so that looks at, what is coming out, what is new, what do we need to do? And then I work with our development teams and our regional marketing teams to define what that product looks like and take that and communicate it, build it, and develop it, and then we're ready to launch it. And that's when we hand it back over to the regions.
So if I understand that correctly, you're the guy that has to look into the magic 8-ball and predict the future, and then make sure you have the products there to cover whatever you think is coming?
That is correct. Yeah,
That sounds
that's how I
a
was
little difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's where the uniqueness of kind of this show is, which is a little bit of a snapshot of where people are going, where maybe people have been in the past to where they're at now today. And I can start to look at that and say, are we on that right path? Are we meeting the needs right now of the trends that have been there for a few years and now they're coming to fruition? And now what is next, right? What are we looking for to be there?
What's
right?
beyond?
Yep.
So, before we even start diving into any kind of topics, just your presence alone, your personal opinion, why do you need to be here today?
Why do I need to be here? Because I think a lot of it is, one, just the density of the manufacturers, the density of the equipment out there, as well as that you just get a huge interaction with customers. And they come up and they can tell you about how good your products are. What do they experience? Or maybe they come with troubles. Maybe they come and say, hey, this wasn't quite working for me. Or what could you do here? Or it's the problems, solutions. We can start to develop. And that gets some things chewing in my brain that I can take back and say, hey, maybe we need to develop some proof of performance in this area to help knowledge, share that knowledge of what we know about our products out to those people. And so this really gives me a lot of juices in thinking about what people are doing.
Yeah, and I'll say on the contractor side, we kind of get equal value, but on the opposite side of the table, it's awesome to come and see what the manufacturers and the suppliers have coming down the pipeline and how we can maybe use that. And there's been a lot of products around here that you kind of go, man, if we retooled our business just a little bit, you could really increase efficiency here, or you could really capitalize on this here with just a little tweak in this attachment or this little tweak. And in all honesty, with the education we've got here this week, I think about we're going home and we're going to change a lot of our lubricant routine with the machine and how we think about this stuff, because it's hard to get that education on the front line, especially as a little guy.
No, it's just interesting because we didn't have the camera rolling, but I had what would have been a 30-second conversation earlier with Nathan about a tube of grease, and him and I were sitting here this morning for about a half hour, and I think it could have went even further.
About grease.
Which
we think of as grease.
Just grease. But the interesting part is, like, we've talked about your guys' ISO clean, we've talked about grease, we've talked about engine oil. We've kind of dabbled with motors. We've kind of talked about the logistics. We've talked about heavy equipment. What we really haven't talked about, though, deeper is the hydraulic oil and possibly the industrial gear oil.
Like gear oil, yeah.
So if you could sum up hydraulic, which seems really simple, it comes in a 5-gallon pail and I dump it in a reservoir. Seems pretty simple.
Yeah. On the surface, sure, you could say that. And I know that a lot of people, they take the 5-pail stuff. They take, they might even say, well, I have engine oil. It's going to work. It's liquid. It's lubricant. It should work in there. But the one thing that I would always tell you is that, yes, it works. You can get your equipment. But what damage are you, not damage, I guess, but, what are you losing?
Sure.
When it's not optimized for that system. You talk about the trends and the knowledge that you were gaining this week, and I look at that there is reasons why it's called a hydraulic fluid. It's dedicated to that. There's not going to be a compromise when you start to run that. And there is a lot of different things to think about, from just your very common, kind of hydraulic fluid, what you might consider if you're an engine oil kind of person thinking as a monograde, right? And then you can start to get into what I would say is your multi-grades, and especially in this type of environment, when we're talking construction, you're outdoors, you want that multi-grade. You want what would maybe be called the all-season kind of product, you don't have to switch it, and there it comes with some other benefits and stuff.
So with that being said, let's just talk about temperatures, whether it's hot or whether it's cold. Are you guys are you just building like a one solution for everybody? Or are you able to manipulate for certain circumstances and
different applications?
Weather and applications.
Yeah.
Are you able to manipulate, and how does this kind of work?
It works in a lot of ways because, again, fluid itself is dynamic, right? The viscosity is a range. It's not like, it's always 1540, right? So, sorry about that. And then, and so you can optimize it. And we do have a lot of different solutions, and everybody has a little bit of different flavor, whether you want a 32 grade, you want a 46 grade. But we can also manipulate the product to work better in cold temperature. And I want to highlight a little bit to that, to where, yes, we can focus and do cold temperature, but I think people get so fixated on the cold temperature that they forget that it doesn't take very long for equipment to warm up, right? I mean, you guys don't touch a hot engine, right? The
Sure.
hydraulics get extremely quick very fast. And so most of the time you're actually operating in a very hot, equipment.
Even though the ambient temperature's cold,
even though the ambient
the
is
fluid's
cold,
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's where also the multi-grade has the top-end ability to work under high temperatures as well as low temperatures. So it's not just a northern, hemisphere kind of product. You can work it in the south, you can use it anywhere, and it actually has just as much benefit working in the Arizona desert as it would with you guys up in Michigan in the cold winters.
Yeah.
And again, even in Michigan, you guys actually have both extremes. It gets extremely hot during the summer as well as the cold in the winter. So again, being able to tweak those products for that environment's great.
So one thing that's occurred to me over this past week, and this is just continuing education has totally shifted my mindset, is we're in an industry where we focus on production and productivity, efficiency. We're constantly tracking cycle counts, and we're tracking loads to see if we can do better and we can continuously improve. We also recognize that the equipment is the lifeblood of our business. It has to run or else we're not making money. It's costing us money. We also recognize that the fluids and lubricants and greases make those things run. We're super analytical over here about our production and our efficiency, but when it comes to all the fluids and lubricants, for the most part, a lot of the industry is kind of like, grab that one over there, it's fine. I mean, we don't take it to the next level to go, okay, are there hydraulic oils that are actually going to work better than just what I got? Is there a grease that's actually going to prolong the equipment better than what I got? Whatever I picked up at Tractor Supply. Is there an engine oil that may let me run significantly faster, or not faster, but longer with the engine or the DPF? We just still have this mentality of, just Grandpappy used the green jug, grab the green jug. So just on your side of the conversation, how do you kind of come alongside the industry and coach us in a way that we kind of hear it?
Well, I wish that there was an easy solution to that, and that's kind of where, again, we look at the different platforms and stuff, and how do we reach people. And one of the things that, again, I like to do is demonstrations. Demonstrations, I think, have the best case ever, which is actually putting it in front of the customer and showing it right there with them. And so some of that, the digital platform kind of helps us do that, and we do full-scale testing, to where we have done products in excavators, to where we will put in what is your typical green bucket, or what people say is, well, this is what I've ran for 20 years. And then we will put in our high-performance products, and we will show the demonstration that not only are you doing fuel economy, which you can show then that it pays for itself, right? Everybody says, it's cost, or I'm going to bust a hose.
That's more expensive. The jug's
it's
more expensive
stuff. Or that, why would I put something more expensive in it if all of a sudden I'm going to bust a hose and it's going to leak out onto the ground? Well, how many hoses are you busting?
Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah.
Now, with the hydraulic oil, can you actually overwork hydraulic oil? Is there a shelf life, even if it's in a machine, let's say 1,000 hours? Can I actually just overwork it, whether we boiled it over, we're not working it enough, it just sits there? Can you ever overwork like a fluid?
Oh yeah, you can easily overwork a fluid. And if you're really pushing your fluids, and you guys probably know it, maybe you don't, but I know that there's a lot of operators that if you're not keeping your system up to right, up to maintenance, all of a sudden you might be wanting to finish your job for the day, but you can't because the alarms start to trigger off. And now you've cooked your hydraulic fluid, it's too thin. All of a sudden you're gonna have to shut down for an hour or 2 hours to get that latent heat out of your oil and before you can start back up. And there's products that can help you do that, but you've definitely cooked your product there. You've lessened the life of that product. It's a component that wears out.
Does it ever go back to the beginning of life, or can I continue to keep running every day?
You could, but you've shortened the overall life of that product, and you do need to maintenance it because at some point, just like why you got to change out your engine oil. Do you ever feel that you've never cooked your engine oil or that it's nasty, right? Hydraulic is a fluid too, right? And its job is there to protect the equipment, but to also remove heat, right? All lubricants remove heat from your moving components, and so that has to go somewhere, and it will eventually age.
So I'm running low on hydraulic fluid. We blew a hose, and I had some T46 or something in there, and I go out and I get a 30 weight of hydraulic oil, and I make a 76 blend. Am I doing anything wrong? Because it's just hydraulic oil.
Sorry, Rick.
Says the oil guy.
We're making our own hydraulic oil.
Yeah, I got you. You've really made an interesting combination because not only did you go from a 46, which I would have loved to have heard, at least that you went with a 10 weight, but you've gone all the way up to a 30 weight, so now we're really pushing a lot more viscosity. So you want to think about making your system work harder is now that fluid is more viscous and now it's harder to push. So now you're putting more heat into the system. So that, to me, I tell you, you've actually lost your efficiency somewhat. Your engine is going to be bogged down more, and your system is not going to run as well. I would be telling you that you at least need to be running a 46, and then there's other fluids that we have that could easily be boosting you back up and improving your productivity.
Well, and I will say that's kind of where there's just ignorance on the behalf of us because we just don't know. We know how to move dirt, and we know that these fluids let us do that. But because we lack the understanding of what's really going on behind the scenes, I can absolutely see the situation where you go top off the hydraulic fluid because she was overheating, and you get back in the machine and it's still overheating, and you're throwing your hands up in the air going, what is the problem? I just put in brand new fluid. What's the issue? But, to go back to your high-performance hydraulic oil, where my mind immediately went is we run a mulcher head on our unit, and on a really hot day, you start getting that heat warning code. But we've never really been told that there's an alternative on the hydraulic oil side that we could absolutely put in there, and it's going to help with that heat issue. Yeah, it may cost a little bit more, but it's going to help increase the longevity of the machine, of the attachment. I mean, there's a lot of benefits.
Well, we powered through that light a couple times.
We did.
I'm sure you did, because what is more important to you guys?
Making money.
Making money and finishing the job, right?
Absolutely.
So now if all of a sudden I do come to you and I tell you I have a product that you're not going to probably see that light very often, and you won't have to worry about, do I have to shut down my equipment and take a coffee break because I can't run it? The alarms are off or anything else. And so now, you potentially put your business at risk, right? Because you pushed through the alarm, right? I mean, the life of your equipment could be, it could freeze up, right?
It is what it is. But we do flush our hydraulic fluid out on services. So let's talk about a little bit of gear oil.
Got to cover ourselves there so we don't look too bad.
Let's talk a little bit about gear oil. What is gear oil? What's its purpose? And it's just gear oil.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to maybe get into a lot of it, but I will get into the industrial gear oil space, which is, where I see that when you start to get into the larger equipment, and a lot of people, there's automotive gear oils that definitely work within the final drive systems and your typical axles. But what I'm talking about is when you're out actually at the wheels or at the treads, the tank. And there is a gearbox in there. It might be electrically driven. It might be hydraulically driven. But there is a planetary gearbox.
Final drive, baby.
Yep, the dyno. That is exactly right. And right in there is where people start to maybe start to flip or change fluids. But they are actually designed for an industrial gear oil. Okay. The ISO 150s, the 220s, you can also run synthetics in there in those same spaces to give you the same things that we were talking about in hydraulics, but they are designed and dedicated to be in those kind of gear systems and drive that performance.
Now, do you run that gear oil until you pull the plug and the sample comes out black, or are you actually testing this along the way, like when you're pulling samples from your motor and everything else too, when people are just testing?
If you are having a testing program, you should be trying to do sample and testing because you don't want that stuff to turn into sludge and gunk it up. Because imagine that you're just never going to get that back out. And anytime that you put new fluid back in there with all that aged stuff, it's going to kill your fluid a lot faster, right? That holdover of product is there. So And you don't want to be running through sludge, right? I mean,
We don't want to. It
you
just
don't want to
happens
pull the drain
sometimes.
plug and nothing come out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's just gelled in there. But yeah,
So when I sold equipment, we had some horror stories of customers that would come in, final drive to completely blown out, and you go, well, when's the last time you changed the final drive oil? We had a customer outright say, there's oil in there? It's like, buddy, ooh, we need to educate. So that's kind of one of my big questions is on everything that we've learned about this week when it comes to the fluids and lubricants. For those guys in the industry like us who don't have this knowledge and don't have the first clue of how to get this knowledge, where would you say is a great starting point for the guy sitting at home watching this?
to self-educate. There's a lot of material out there, and you can go to the different oil manufacturers' web pages. There's places that you can get trained, like Noria, STLE. They will talk to you about it and try to get you up to speed on all of this. And we're continuing to try to put more and more material out there. Mm-hmm. And there's even courses to take, online courses. There's not too much commitment to be able to do that. And definitely talk to your salespeople, right? Push them for the information.
Well,
That's another one.
What if I'm the small guy that's running up to Tractor Supply or Walmart to get all of my oil, and I don't necessarily have a sales rep? How do I go about starting that whole process?
Yeah, that would be the most difficult, which is to actually then reach out and not go to your local shop anymore and actually try to find a distributor, a local distributor that you can get in and actually see the other products that are actually on the market and not just the stuff that ends up on the shelf. Those things definitely hit a certain market. I know that there are people that are out, in the country or whatever, and that is just the location that they are. But you also know that there's a lot of other big players, and there probably is some local distributors that do have a shop or a warehouse that you could actually start to get supply from, because you're not just going to be buying one product from them, right? You'll be buying everything.
Sure.
You might be getting fuel, your engine oils, everything that we've been talking about. You could start to go as a small player, I think, even to these local distributors.
Absolutely.
I do feel like a lot of the industry at the small side kind of feels like all of this is for the big guys. I can't afford the cost associated with that. That's just too complicated. I don't need all of that. And I think one of the things that we've learned here this week is all of this is viable for the small guy. It's just as important to the small guy as it is for the big guy. And a lot of the things that you're starting to implement, like fluid testing and that stuff, it's ultimately saving you a lot of money. Even though, yes, you're forking out for that oil sample or that coolant sample or whatever, because you have the potential of not only grenading your engine, but also the just possibility of extended drain intervals, you are going to net positive on that investment.
And it's open to everybody, right? Again, as you're saying, it's not for the big player. If you're a customer and you want to be part of a testing program, you're just like a customer of anyone else. You just might not have as many samples, but you can purchase and do those kind of programs as well. So I really think that it is good. And I think it's also the way that we have a different, distributor model, depending on how big you are, whether we call it, indirect or direct. We have people that are willing to go out and support everybody. You know?
Well, Jason, with that being said, is there...
It's Nathan, but it's
or
all right.
Nathan, Jason.
It's been a long week.
It's been a long week, man. As we wrap this show up, is there anything that stands out at ConExpo this year with you?
Stands out. Yeah, I think that there is a lot, and I think that it's great to see the shifting and things going on. You brought up sensors. I think that those are starting to really find a home. Before, it was like they tried to do everything. And now I feel that they're really getting focused. I feel that the telematics, and trying to do it and seeing how can I make your operation more efficient. And also the uptime and the productivity. Those were all key things that I saw here that was just crazy. And of course, the other one is alternative energies and the electrification. And I know that those are now on the brink. And, people were saying, oh, that's a long ways off. No, I've seen examples here at this show that says people are making leaps and bounds to doing some of that. Yes. And it's going to start to drive different things within the industry that will offer things to people, and even small guys, because again, when you're working indoors and you're worried about emissions, they have a lot more electric options that you can offer as a benefit to you to being able to do some of those different jobs, right?
Yeah. I would say it definitely feels this way. If I have one takeaway this year, it definitely feels like the industry is in the process of evolving.
Yeah.
So, Nathan, thank you so much for the time and the education. This has been awesome.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate the hard work you guys have been doing all this week. So
absolutely, we're happy to be here. So, and for you guys online, thank you guys for joining us. Sorry you couldn't make it out here. We are going to go live one more time tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We'll catch you then.
Thanks, guys.